We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Chisos Capital. Everyone knows that raising capital is hard. And frankly, finding the next pool of entrepreneurs to get access to as limited investors is sometimes impossible too. Do you have a big idea, a dream you're building, but you're struggling to find early funding? Well, Chisos is changing the game for founders, creators, athletes, and investors. Whether you're launching a startup, growing your creative brand, or training for the big leagues, Chisos backs you. Chisos uniquely invests up to $100,000 in people, not just products, whether they be entrepreneurs, creators, or even athletes. With their unique CISA model, convertible income share agreements, founders get flexible funding without giving up equity or ownership, and investors get attractive returns and great upside with less risk. Chisos works for both investors and the people bringing our world to life. If you're seeking access to a truly diverse pool of deals, or you're someone who feels overlooked by the VC game, Chisos is ready to back you. So apply now at chisos.io.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hey, it's me. It's Friday. And so we're here to enjoy some stoppage time together. This week, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to hone in on one critically important skill that we can all benefit from mastering in our lives, in our business lives, and our personal lives today in this information world we live in. And it comes from the conversation that I had the pleasure of having with Matthew Facciani on this week's Entrepreneurial Thinkers new episode, which just dropped Thursday across all your favorite audio podcast platforms and our YouTube video channel, of course. I consider Matthew to be what I called him in the episode, which is the Bill Nye, the science guy for social sciences. He's an accomplished scientific researcher, an analyst, an author, lecturer, and a podcaster. And in this episode, we delve into the all-important topic of misinformation and disinformation and kind of why we believe what we believe in today's world. And the skill that I want us all to focus on this week, by sharing a couple of clips of our conversation with you, is how to become a critical ignorer. Right. So firstly, let's talk about what is this principle that Matthew has shared with us. Well, in modern day media and education, we talk quite a bit about the importance of becoming a critical thinker, right? And that's obviously really important. But this is kind of as obviously important, especially in today's information landscape, where we are increasingly responsible for determining what we're reading or what we're watching and whether or not that's real or true or accurate or even human and not AI generated. We used to consume and share information inside of an ecosystem of, let's call them trusted sources, whether that was newspapers of record, reputable news television sources, or even credible professional journalists and analysts. And now that we've lost many of those trusted relationships to what I'll say is kind of their relentless pursuit of capitalistic clicks, returns on investment, revenue, and profits, we're left out here to discern what we trust or not kind of on our own. And so Matthew helps us to begin to understand this concept of becoming a critical ignorer.
Yeah, I really like the term critical ignoring. It's a more recent term in the media literacy, education, psychology literature. And it basically adds to this idea of navigating our information environments more critically. So a lot of that has been on the critical thinking front, which is the ability to analyze information itself. But this takes it in a different direction because you are trying to work on protecting your attention as best you can and selectively ignoring all that noise. Because this environment is just overwhelming with the sheer volume of information. So there's a few strategies that some of these researchers have talked about that can help. And a couple of them are pretty straightforward, but also really important. The first one is to just think about your own activity online and consider if you can basically do like nudging yourself to limit the amount of time you spend on these platforms.
So secondly, how do we become one? right? Well, Matthew shows us that it's not necessarily enough to become a good critical thinker. It's important to become excellent at protecting our brain from the piles of mis and disinformation that are polluting our information consumption universe each day. It's critical to become good at managing what we ignore and what we consume. One tactic I began to employ back in November of 2020, deep into year one of the pandemic lockdowns here in Los Angeles, was what so much information, misinformation, disinformation was flooding all over our feeds, was that just for my own sanity at the moment, honestly, I just selfishly shut off all of my notifications across all of my devices. And I can say that it didn't take long for that habit to kind of sink in and become the norm from which I operated. Because today, here we are 5 years later, almost to the day, and I've held to that standard. The only notifications that I have that are on are for incoming phone calls or text alerts from a very small protected list of 8 people, family and my closest friends. That's it. And as for the rest of social media, email, text, or other tools, I just utilize them as needed. I literally don't get inundated with notifications. In fact, one funny story was a handful of years back. In this last 5 years, I had a client that was super users of Slack. And I got signed up into their Slack program so I could be available, monitor what was going on, being discussed. And I essentially kind of defeated the purpose of Slack because I had the notification shut off. And so I would only kind of go into them just much like I go into my email, kind of a couple times throughout the course of the day, first thing in the morning, middle of the day, end of the day, evening, just to kind of check and see what's updated and what I've missed and what I need to respond to. But I also have a second technique that I employ when sourcing information online, which honestly, I didn't really know was a scientific technique until Matthew told us about it in this clip that we share with you.
Like, if you're seeing something that creates a lot of emotion in you, that's the indicator of itself to pause and reflect on, am I sharing this because, one, is it true? Like, is it, so that's another part of this critical ignoring, is this concept of lateral reading, where you look laterally instead of within the content of the article that you're potentially sharing. You're seeing, what do other people say about the author? What do other people say about this topic? You're literally opening another tab and seeing who's this author, what's their background, who's funding them.
Yeah.
And again, it just slows you down. Like, a lot of this is just adding friction too. Like,
and what is that called? Lateral reading?
Lateral reading. Yeah.
Literally, I do that like for like the last couple of years, and I did not know that's what it's called. But I like in my head, I was like, I'm source checking. I'm contextualizing that thing that I just read to, as you say, first and foremost, make sure that it's true, and then understand of where it came from. Right? Why was and if it's the only example, like if it's the only story about this one thing that supposedly happened.
And it's funny because I tell you all the time that one of the greatest things about producing our podcast is how much I get to learn from all these amazing entrepreneurial thinkers that we get to talk to each week. And well, kind of in a weird, unintended twist of timing lately in our production and release schedule, we've released 2 episodes. This one with Matthew around discerning mis and disinformation and why we believe what we believe. But a second, which was released a few weeks earlier than Matthew's, which is around trust and the 7 trust languages from our friend Minda Harts. And to me, as I reflected back this week, as I was getting ready to share this with you, I kept thinking about how these 2 episodes might honestly be 2 of the most important conversations that I've had recently. They're both so relevant to our work as entrepreneurs, as investors, or leaders in our lives or in our professional lives, in this noisy, kind of combative, information overloaded world that we live in, where we are constantly having to ask ourselves, like, can I trust that information, right? Can I trust that person, that source? And to me, in many ways, the themes and lessons provided to us by both of these incredible authors and experts in their own work, somehow conjoined this week in my mind to provide us the maps that we need in order to be our best and most effective selves. So we can deeply understand why we believe what we believe and why others around us may believe what they believe. And then we can take the steps towards building more trusted relationships. It's a kind of a fun confluence of 2 completely separate conversations about 2 very different topics. But as you think about them in the sweep of all the episodes and the conversations that I get to have, it really just kind of gelled together for me. So I thought I wanted to share that and draw your attention to those. We live in an era when more and more people, frankly, just check out mentally, right? And we just digest and believe and share whatever we're scrolling past in our feeds. And too few of us are really checking our sources. which means then this isn't only dangerous for us and our minds and our emotions, but unintentionally it makes us kind of part of the problem as we wind up spreading bad information or bad, untrustworthy sources. So you can see very quickly how easily public opinion can be swayed, how quickly elections could be affected, how quickly and terribly governments like our federal government here in the United States could be hijacked and essentially wind up working against us. I am grateful. I tell you this all the time, and I'm going to kind of close up with this today, right? I'm grateful for every conversation that I get to host on our show. And every one of them opens up a window to a part of our world, a part of our entrepreneurial lives, a part of our investor lives, a part of our leadership lives that helps us to take lessons away that we can apply in our own pursuits to, as we always say, try and leave the world a little bit better than we found it. But every once in a while, a show or two will come along and stand out from the others for very particular reasons, right? Because they're lighting a path for us to that better world that we all aspire to. And these two recent episodes really hit that mark, in my opinion. So I really do encourage you. I hope you'll go listen to them or watch them wherever you consume this show or our shows, if you haven't already. And we'd obviously always love to hear your impressions and thoughts about how these conversations impacted you. But that's it. It's a little different twist on Stoppage Time this week, kind of giving you a tease into Matthew's episode that I hope you'll go and check that out and learn from it, because I think it's critically important today that we learn to be not just critical thinkers, but we learn, as Matthew reminds us, to be critical ignorers as well. That's it for Stoppage Time from chilly, kind of cold, wet, pre-wintry Los Angeles, where I am still indoors here, nursing my knee back to health. It's feeling a little bit better, but still waiting on the next steps via an MRI and some more insights from the doctors. But I'm also turning on the portable heater behind me for the first time in 2025, because that's how chilly it is. And for context, for those Fahrenheit versus Celsius, like Fahrenheit, it's like 50-ish outside today. It got into the mid 40s last night overnight. I had to put the big blanket on the bed for the first time in 2025. So I'm going to do my best to keep the long sleeves on and stay warm here in the kitchen studio as we record more incredible conversations for upcoming episodes that are going to take us right through the end of the year and into 2026. Super excited for the potential of what's coming via Entrepreneurial Thinkers, as well as for the shows that we are getting closer to releasing now from our production side of our business, where we are going to launch a couple of really cool new branded podcasts for businesses and organizations here in our community. So I'm going to wish you nothing but peace, joy, love this weekend, and maybe a little bit of discernment as well, as you practice becoming a critical ignorer. Peace.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Shore Capital. In today's venture capital world, it's not just about cash. It's about relationships. Capital is harder to find, limited investors have fewer managers that they can trust, and the industry is just filled with far too much hype. Shore Capital is an early-stage venture fund investing in the world's most ruthlessly iterative founders, helping its limited partners to find founders who are solving the world's most dynamic problems, teams that excel in mastering the idea maze, teams moving with a rapid, iterative velocity and demonstrating radical resourcefulness. Shore Capital doesn't just write checks, though. They become fractional co-founders when needed, offering strategic support, high-leverage relationship development, and a deep commitment to the long-term success of their portfolio companies. If you are a ruthlessly iterative founder with a bold vision, or a limited investor seeking sustained access to the brightest big thinkers of our time, Shore Capital wants to meet you. So visit shorecapital.notion.site to learn more.